Good evening. Elvis Presley died today. He was 42. Apparently, it was a heart attack.
To understand the mystery surrounding what was found in Elvis Presley's Cadillac, you have to start with the man's obsession. Elvis wasn't just the king of rock and roll. He was the king of Cadillacs. It wasn't a gimmick. It was a lifestyle. From the time he earned his first paycheck, Elvis was obsessed with American steel, fins, chrome, and V8 rumble. Cadillacs represented everything he loved: style, power, freedom, and generosity. Elvis didn't just buy them for himself, he gave them away. To friends, to fans, to total strangers. Over 100 Cadillacs passed through his hands during his lifetime. There are stories of him walking out of a dealership, spotting someone who admired his car, and tossing them the keys. One of his most famous cars, a pink 1955 Cadillac Fleetwood Series 60, became a symbol of his lavish generosity and iconic image. It now lives in the Graceland Museum, a shrine to his larger-than-life persona. But not every car made it into the spotlight. Not every Cadillac became a legend. One did the opposite. A particular vehicle, rumored to be a deep maroon 1976 Cadillac Eldeville, was different. It was never displayed, never mentioned in interviews, and not part of the official Graceland tours. For years, no one outside of Elvis's closest circle even knew it existed. That car was seen once in a grainy photo in the background of a garage shot from the late 70s, and then it vanished. That is, until recently. Voiceover teases, but one Cadillac vanished from public view for decades, and when a restoration team finally got their hands on it, they found something no one could have prepared for. What they uncovered inside wasn't just lost memorabilia, it was a sealed piece of Elvis's soul, a hidden chapter locked away beneath the seat of a forgotten Cadillac. The story of Elvis Presley's lost Cadillac begins like a myth, just fragments, whispered rumors, and a single decades-old photograph. The vehicle in question, a 1976 Cadillac Eldorado, deep burgundy with a white vinyl top. It was never featured in Graceland's official collection, never seen in public since the late 70s. And yet, those who knew Elvis best claimed it was one of his favorites. In the months leading up to his death, Elvis withdrew more and more from the spotlight. He still performed, but his world was increasingly confined to Graceland and a small circle of friends and staff. And during that time, a few say he spent hours in the garage, alone, behind the wheel of that Eldorado. Not driving, just sitting. After his passing in August 1977, most of his well-known cars were either inventoried, gifted, or sold. But the Eldorado, it disappeared. Some thought it had been quietly sold to a private collector. Others believed it had been mothballed and forgotten, sealed in a structure somewhere on the estate grounds, or stashed away by someone close to the family. Then, decades later, in a remote storage facility outside Memphis, not registered to Elvis, but loosely tied to a former employee, a classic car preservation team received a tip. A dusty, locked-down Cadillac was sitting untouched in a corner bay, its documentation vague and its provenance mysterious. When they opened the unit, there it was, beneath years of grime, spiderwebs, and silence, a perfectly intact 1976 Cadillac Eldorado, matching the exact description from that old garage photo. But what really turned heads wasn't just the discovery of the missing car, it was what they found inside. At first glance, the Cadillac appeared surprisingly well preserved. The chrome trim had dulled, and the white wall tires had long gone flat, but the body was intact. The leather seats, though dry and cracking at the seams, still bore the faint imprint of years gone by. It was a time capsule, forgotten by the world, untouched by human hands for decades. The restoration team approached the car with reverence. They weren't just working on a Cadillac, they were handling a ghost from history. Every panel removed, every screw loosened, was done slowly, methodically, like an archaeological dig. And for the first few days, everything seemed routine. Minor rust in the undercarriage, a few corroded wires, and a thick layer of dust on everything. But as they reached beneath the passenger seat, intending to remove the old carpeting, something strange happened. A portion of the floor pan didn't match. It wasn't factory weld. It looked newer, aftermarket. A technician tapped on the metal, and it echoed hollow. That's when they knew. Something was hidden. They carefully cut away the carpeting and insulation, revealing a false panel, flush with the floor, and painted over to disguise its presence. It was secured by 2 tiny screws, rusted shut. The team stopped. Cameras were turned on. Phones came out. This wasn't just a restoration anymore. This was a discovery. What lay beneath would turn a forgotten Cadillac into the most controversial Elvis artifact since the day he died. Under that false floorboard was a shallow compartment, about the size of a briefcase. It was sealed tight, its edges covered in an old rubber gasket, like something meant to be waterproof or private. After a brief moment of hesitation, they pried it open. Inside was a stack of small items, wrapped in a faded blue cloth. At the top was a yellowed envelope, sealed and brittle from time. It had no name, just a handwritten date, August 14th, 1977, 2 days before Elvis's death. Beneath that, a bundle of Polaroid photos face down, a prescription note, a small black audio cassette tape labeled private, and finally, a strip of film reel in a tiny canister, undeveloped, its contents still unknown. No one spoke. This wasn't memorabilia. These were personal artifacts, the kinds of things people take to the grave. The team froze the restoration. Everything was documented, boxed, and turned over to private archivists under tight confidentiality. Whispers of legal action began almost immediately. Some feared the Presley estate would shut the entire thing down. Others feared what the items might reveal. But the most haunting item was still the envelope. Because what was written inside it, according to one source, was never meant to be read. The contents of the hidden stash weren't just puzzling. They were deeply emotional. Experts brought in to examine the items confirmed the photos were candid shots of Elvis, taken at Graceland and on the road. They weren't posed. They weren't promotional. They were raw, capturing a man who looked tired, fragile, and, at times, heartbreakingly alone. One photo in particular stood out. Elvis sitting in the back seat of the Cadillac, eyes closed, hands folded, almost as if he were saying goodbye. The date stamp? August 15, 1977. The prescription note, issued just days earlier, was for multiple medications, some of which had long been speculated to contribute to his health issues. The list was sobering. The handwriting, his personal doctor's. Then came the cassette tape. Though degraded, it was playable. What it contained was a voice, quiet, weary, unmistakably Elvis. He spoke in fragments, reflecting on fame, loss, fear, and his daughter, Lisa Marie. And the envelope? Inside was a handwritten letter. Not a will, not a confession, just words. A final note to his daughter, laced with sorrow and hope. "If you're reading this," it began, "then I didn't make it. No signatures, no explanations. Just a father trying to leave behind something real, hidden where only time and fate could eventually find it. As the contents of the letter were studied further by historians and handwriting analysts, one thing became clear. It was unquestionably Elvis's handwriting. The loops, the slant, the slightly exaggerated capital letters, all matched samples from personal letters and autographs. But this one? It wasn't written for fans. It was written in private, in pain. The letter was deeply emotional. He spoke of loneliness, of the crushing pressure to remain the king, and the toll fame had taken on his body and mind. He mentioned regrets, not about the music or the fame, but about being away from his daughter too often. "I hope you remember the man, not the legend," he wrote in one line. "They only see what I give them. But you saw me when the lights went out." Some lines suggested paranoia. He referenced people around him he no longer trusted, hinted at being monitored, even manipulated. It wasn't clear who he meant, but the tone was guarded, almost fearful. Most strikingly, Elvis never once mentioned death explicitly. But there was an overwhelming sense of finality, like a man who felt the end was near and wanted to make peace with the only person who truly mattered to him. The letter wasn't addressed to the public. It wasn't meant to be a statement. It was a father's final whisper to his daughter, sealed beneath the seat of a Cadillac he knew no one would ever think to search. Until now. As news of the hidden stash quietly spread among industry insiders, a wave of speculation followed. Why did Elvis hide these things in the first place? Why not leave them in a will or entrust them to someone in his circle? One theory suggests he knew someone might try to suppress or spin his final words, that leaving it in the car, concealed, forgotten, buried beneath leather and steel, was his way of preserving the truth, untouched. Others point to the turmoil surrounding Elvis in his final years. Mounting health issues, increasing isolation, rumors of substance dependence, and distrust even within his inner circle. Could he have felt like his own story was being written for him, and this was his last shot to tell it his way? Some fans and historians viewed the findings as sacred. Others called for the items to be returned to Graceland or to Lisa Marie's estate. Legal experts debated who actually owned the contents. Was it the restoration team, the property owner, or the Presley family? Then came the media silence. Almost overnight, the entire discovery vanished from the public conversation. No official press release, no coverage from major outlets, just a quiet ceasefire, as if someone behind the scenes had hit pause. The Cadillac was returned to storage, the contents sealed again. And the letter? Rumored to have been passed, quietly and respectfully, to Elvis's family. Whatever message the king left behind, it was finally delivered. When whispers of the discovery reached members of Elvis's former entourage, known as the Memphis Mafia, the reactions were instant and emotional. One former bodyguard, now in his late 70s, reportedly broke down upon hearing what was found. "He always kept things close to the chest," he said. "But I remember that car. He was weird about it. Never let anyone drive it. Said it was his thinking seat." A former Graceland staffer recalled Elvis disappearing for hours, parked alone in the Cadillac behind closed garage doors. He'd listen to gospel, write stuff on napkins. Sometimes he just sat there, in silence. It was like therapy for him. Others weren't surprised that Elvis had hidden something. They claim he was paranoid near the end. Not without reason. He felt surveilled, betrayed, controlled. "That letter?" one insider said. "That was him finally speaking without someone rewriting the script." What shocked them most wasn't the existence of the compartment. It was what he chose to leave behind. Not diamonds, not money, not memorabilia, but truth. Private, unpolished, and heartbreakingly human. The implications of the discovery sent ripples through both the fan community and Elvis historians. This wasn't just a novelty, it was a missing piece of the man behind the myth. Some said the letter softened the image of Elvis as an untouchable icon and reframed him as what he really was: a father, a son, a man burdened by his own legend. Others argued that it proved long-whispered rumors about his unhappiness, his loss of control, and his deep longing for something real. The undeveloped film is still a mystery. Rumor has it the Presley estate has it now. Will they release it? Or is it too personal, even for public history? There's even talk of creating a private exhibition, separate from Graceland, that focuses on Elvis's final years, framed around the Cadillac discovery. But nothing is confirmed. For now, it's all speculation. What remains certain is this: Elvis didn't hide money or fame. He hid himself. And that Cadillac wasn't just a car. It was a vault of memory. The Cadillac now sits silent again. Its doors closed, the seat cushions refitted, the compartment once more sealed. But it feels different now, as if it's no longer just a collector's piece, but a witness to something sacred. A tribute video quietly made the rounds in the Elvis community. Soft gospel music over black and white images of him leaning against the Cadillac, smiling, tired, still full of grace. A closing line from the letter echoed over the visuals. "If you ever wonder who I really was, check the seat." And just like that, the story of a hidden compartment became something far more powerful. A reminder that even the most famous among us carry secrets, grief, and a desperate need to be understood. In the end, the Cadillac didn't just carry a man. It carried his goodbye. Because for Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, his final performance wasn't on a stage. It was under the seat of a car. And he finally got the encore he never asked for, but always needed.